Some land remembers, and some land fights back. Long before maps tried to draw borders across the sunburned earth, this place already knew who it belonged to. Black Mesa, a fortress of stone and shadow, rising from the desert like the spine of an ancient beast. For centuries it stood untouched, sacred, protected, feared. To the Apache who call this land home, Black Mesa is more than rock and sand. It is memory. It is spirit. It is their very blood. Every crack in its cliffs holds a story. Every gust of wind carries the voices of ancestors who walked here long before history bothered to take notice. But when outsiders look upon this land, they see something different. They see emptiness. They see opportunity. They see a future carved out by force, not tradition. And that ignorance is how the trouble always begins. Some say there are places on this earth where the past refuses to stay buried. Where every step taken by those who do not belong awakens something old, something powerful. Here, beneath the relentless sun, one such place waits, silent and watchful. The Apache warn. Black Mesa is alive. And when threatened, it does not forgive. In the days to come, greed will clash with heritage. Fear will battle belief. And men who thought themselves conquerors will learn what it means to provoke a land protected by spirits older than time. This is not just a story of a fight for territory. It is a fight for identity, for honor, for the soul of a people whose roots run deeper than the rock itself. Remember this well. Some land remembers, some land fights back, and here, at Black Mesa, both are true. For the Apache, this land was not a choice, it was destiny. Generations ago, long before settlers claimed they had discovered the West, the Chiricahua Apache followed the winds of survival to this towering plateau. They saw the way the sun crowned its peak each morning, like a blessing. They felt the pulse of the earth beneath their feet, steady, strong, ancient. And they knew. Black Mesa was where their people were meant to stand. Here, every stream, every canyon, every silent stone carried a purpose. Children learned the stories of their ancestors not from books, but from the land itself. The earth was their teacher, the sky their guide, and the spirits of those who came before, their protectors. At night, under the full moon's glow, the tribe gathered to honor the ones who had watched over them since time unmeasured. Drums beat like the heartbeat of the earth. Smoke curled into the stars like prayers rising into the heavens. Their chants echoed across the cliffs, calling upon guardians unseen but always felt. Among their oldest legends, one story towered above the rest. They spoke of a powerful spirit guardian, a protector bound to Black Mesa long before humans set foot in this land. A being carved from the same stone as the cliffs themselves. Not quite God, not quite ghost, but something in between. A presence that could shape the wind, command the darkness, and if provoked, unleash the full wrath of the land. This spirit was a reminder, a warning. Respect the mesa, or be erased by it. The Apache believed Black Mesa was alive, not in a way outsiders could measure or understand, but alive in the breath of the wind, in the shifting of shadows at dusk, in the rumble of distant thunder on a clear day. It watched, remembered, it protected what was sacred. To the Apache, this place was a sanctuary, a home, a promise passed from ancestor to descendant. But to those arriving from far away, blinded by ambition, the truth of the mesa was invisible. They saw only silence, only empty land. They did not hear the whispers of ancestors in the canyon walls. They did not feel the spirit that stirred beneath the ground. They did not understand the danger of disturbing what should remain untouched. And that misunderstanding, that arrogance, would soon awaken forces that had slept for centuries. Because when the land is alive, and when it is threatened, it does exactly what the Apache have always said. It fights back. The first warnings did not come as shouts or war cries. They came as whispers from nature itself. Birds that once filled the morning sky with song now scattered in silence, fleeing the mesa's shadow. Herds of antelope, usually calm and curious, bolted at the slightest sound, kicking up dust as they vanished into the horizon. Even the wolves, feared hunters of the night, began avoiding the canyons, their howls replaced by uneasy quiet. The Apache elders took notice. They always did. To them the world speaks, if you know how to listen. And what they heard now was a message of unrest. The wind, usually carrying the scent of sage and earth, felt different, sharp, unsettled, like breath drawn before a scream. The ground seemed to tremble with anticipation, as if something beneath was trying to wake. Around the council fires the elders spoke in low tones. Dreams turning dark. Spirits growing restless. Balance shifting. But among them stood a warrior too young to fear shadows, Chayton. Strong of heart and quick to action, he had earned respect through sheer determination. His name, Falcon, was not given lightly. Like the bird that soared above Black Mesa, he saw the world clearly. Every movement, every change, every threat. Chayton believed in the ways of his ancestors, in honor and the sacred land. But he also believed in the future, in survival, growth, strength. He wanted his people to thrive, not merely endure. So when the animals' behavior changed, he noticed first. And when the elders felt unease, he felt it too, like a stone lodged deep in his chest. Then came the moment no one could ignore. From atop a ridge, Chayton spotted distant figures moving where no outsider should tread. Wagons, horses, tools that glinted like stolen sunlight. Settlers, pushing deeper into Apache territory than ever before. His hands tightened around his spear. Not out of anger, but certainty. The danger the land had been whispering about was no longer a rumor carried by the wind. It was here, marching toward Black Mesa with every rattling wheel and booted step. Chayton rushed to warn the elders, but he already knew what they would say. When outsiders come into a sacred land, they do not leave unchanged. And neither does the land itself. The first threat had arrived. But by the time anyone realized it, the true danger had already awakened. The outsiders came not as neighbors, not as guests, but as conquerors in search of promise. To them, Black Mesa was not sacred ground. It was opportunity, a prize to be claimed. Rumors of gold hidden beneath the desert sands spread faster than wildfire. Land grants offered by distant governments promised wealth and power to anyone bold enough to seize it. And behind every map and every decree, a single idea drove them forward: manifest destiny. The belief that the land was theirs to take, no matter who already walked upon it, no matter what spirits watched from the cliffs. Camps sprung up at the edges of sacred burial grounds, oblivious to the whispers of the wind. Wagons creaked as they unloaded tools, tents, and weapons. Fires dotted the valley floor, burning where ancestors had long been at rest. Each hammer, each shovel, each careless step stirred the quiet anger that had slept beneath the soil for centuries. The Apache sent emissaries as they always did. They approached with words of warning, offering peace but demanding respect. And the outsiders? They laughed. They mocked the rituals. They scoffed at the elders. They saw nothing in the mesa but a barrier to be pushed aside. Chayton watched from the cliffs above, his heart both burning with fury and bound by discipline. He was young, yes, but he had learned the rules of engagement. There was wisdom in restraint, strength and patience. And so he waited. It did not take long for the first skirmish to erupt. A scouting party had wandered too close, drawn by curiosity or greed, it was impossible to tell which. A warning shot was fired. A shout echoed. And suddenly, Black Mesa was no longer silent. Chayton and his warriors descended upon the intruders with a precision that seemed almost effortless. No wild chaos, no reckless bloodlust. Each strike was measured. Each maneuver deliberate. They fought to protect, not to destroy. They aimed to send a message: this land belongs to those who honor it. The settlers retreated, but their arrogance remained. They believed the Apache had only struck because they were outnumbered. They did not yet understand that numbers were meaningless here. The land itself favored its guardians, and the guardians knew its every curve, every shadow, every hidden path. Chayton looked upon the retreating figures with a mixture of pride and unease. Pride for the skill his people had shown. Unease for what it meant: the outsiders would not stop here. Not with their promises of wealth and expansion. Not when the mesa stood as a barrier between them and the future they coveted. This was only the beginning. The mesa had already spoken through its people. And the outsiders, for all their strength and ambition, were beginning to learn a lesson the land had taught countless generations before. Some places do not yield, and some forces do not forgive. The first skirmishes were only a warning. But soon the warnings became battles. The Apache moved like shadows across the mesas and canyons, defending the trails that carried water and food, lifelines in a land that was merciless to the unprepared. Every creek, every spring, every narrow pass became a point of defense. Every step the settlers took deeper into the mesa was met with careful, relentless opposition. Chayton was at the forefront. Young, yes, but fearless. Every strike he made, every decision he took in the heat of conflict, revealed the warrior he was becoming. The elders had taught him patience, the rhythms of the land, the patterns of the wind, and now, in the chaos of battle, those lessons became survival itself. He intercepted supply wagons before they could reach the encampment. He ambushed scouting parties with precise timing, leaving them confused and terrified, yet alive. His goal was never slaughter but defense, and in that balance lay the genius of his youth. The settlers, however, were relentless. Their losses angered them. They returned with vengeance in their eyes and new weapons in hand, hired enforcers, men with nothing to lose, trained in the brutal arts of conquest. They did not see a people defending their home, they saw obstacles in the path to fortune. And so the battles grew in ferocity. Blows struck back and forth across the mesas. Lives were lost on both sides, each casualty fueling a fire that refused to die. Hatred began to thread itself through the hearts of men. The Apache mourned their fallen, whispering prayers to the ancestors for strength. The settlers cursed the land, blaming the people, blaming the rocks, blaming the very wind itself. Yet through it all Chayton rose. Not because he sought glory, he sought protection. Not because he thirsted for revenge, he thirsted for survival. With every battle, his skill grew sharper, his instincts keener. And the young warrior began to understand something that no one else could yet see. This land was not merely a battleground. It was alive. It responded to those who walked upon it. It tested those who disrespected it. And it would not allow its protectors to fail. The Mesa had spoken in subtle ways until now. But soon the messages would become impossible to ignore. Because when a land is alive, and its guardians are pushed too far, the clash ignites not just in battle but in the very spirit of the earth itself. And neither side would ever be the same. The battles had begun in the open, but the war was far from ordinary. Soon, whispers of the Mesa's power began to spread among the settlers. They could not explain it. Wagons vanished from well-worn paths. Men sent to scout never returned. At night, eerie sounds echoed across the canyons, cries that carried no shape, shadows that moved with minds of their own. Every attempt to claim the land seemed met with resistance far beyond what men alone could muster. The Apache knew better. Elders spoke in low, solemn tones of the spirit that had always protected the Mesa, a guardian older than any living memory. The young warrior, Chayton, listened with growing understanding. He had felt the land's heartbeat during battle, the subtle tremors that guided his strikes. Now the warnings were unmistakable. The Mesa itself had awakened. Chayton observed the signs more keenly than anyone. The crows circling above no longer cried in warning, they perched silently, watching. Streams ran strangely, sometimes dry, sometimes flooded, as though the land itself was breathing in anger. Even the rocks seemed to shift when no hand had touched them. The settlers tried to laugh it off. They blamed superstition. They mocked the Apache and their rituals. But deep inside, even their bravest began to sense it. Something was watching, something ancient and patient, and it did not forget. Chayton's nights were restless. He patrolled the borders, tracing patterns in the sand, sensing when the wind carried warning and when it carried death. He was learning that this war would not be won by force alone, that skill and courage were only part of the battle. And then, the first truly unexplainable event occurred. A small group of settlers, confident in their numbers, pushed into a canyon thought to be safe. They vanished. Nothing remained, not a footstep, not a scrap of cloth, not a whisper of their presence. Only the wind carried a faint, mournful cry. The elders murmured that the guardian had claimed them. Chayton felt a cold certainty in his chest. The land had drawn a line, and those who crossed it without respect were being judged. Fear began to take hold of the settlers. They fortified their camp, but the sense of unease only grew. The more they tried to impose their will, the more the land, alive, aware, unyielding, pushed back. Chayton realized then that the battles fought so far were only the beginning. The Mesa was more than stone and sand. It was a living force. And the settlers? They were intruders in a place that did not forgive. The young warrior felt a mixture of awe and dread. This was not just a fight for survival. It was a test. A warning. And if the outsiders did not heed it, the Mesa would teach lessons that no human could endure and still live to tell. The elders gathered under the moon, their faces etched with age and worry, carrying the weight of centuries. They spoke in hushed tones, voices trembling not from fear of men, but from the knowledge that the land itself had been disturbed. Chayton stood among them, heart racing, senses sharpened by every warning the Mesa had sent. He had seen the signs, felt the tremors, understood the subtle shifts of the wind. And now he faced a choice he could never have imagined. To call upon the ancient power that had slumbered beneath the cliffs for generations. The ritual was older than memory. Its purpose was clear, to summon the spirit guardian, the protector of the Mesa, and to bind its wrath to the defense of the Apache. But with power came risk. The Guardian did not differentiate between right and wrong, friend or foe. It followed the call of the Mesa, and its justice was absolute. "Do we dare?" an elder whispered, eyes cast toward the darkened canyons. "Once awakened, there is no turning back." Chayton stepped forward. His youth was his boldness, his fear tempered by duty. "We have no choice," he said. "If we do not act, our people will be lost. The outsiders do not understand this land. They will not leave until it is ours, or theirs is destroyed." The elders exchanged glances. The young warrior's courage could not be denied. And so, with solemn chants and sacred offerings, the ritual began. The Mesa seemed to respond immediately. The air thickened. Shadows lengthened unnaturally. Even the wind paused as though waiting. Chayton's heart pounded with anticipation and fear. He felt the Guardian stir beneath the surface, a presence massive and unknowable. Images flashed in his mind, ancestors standing in silent judgment, the cliffs alive with unseen eyes, the promise of power mingled with the threat of annihilation. "You must lead them," the head elder said, placing a hand on Chayton's shoulder. "You are chosen as keeper of the sacred ground. It is your duty to protect the tribe and guide the Guardian. But know this, your life will never be your own again. The Mesa will demand what it requires." Chayton swallowed the weight of destiny. He understood that the coming days would not only test his strength as a warrior but his spirit. He would have to navigate battles both human and supernatural, balance courage with caution, and guide his people through trials no one else could comprehend. The ritual reached its peak. A low hum rose from the earth, a vibration that seemed to resonate through bone and blood. The Guardian had awakened. Its presence was immense, unseen but undeniable, and it had chosen Chayton as its human counterpart, a bridge between the living and the spirit, the past and the present. From that moment, nothing would be the same. The outsiders would learn that Black Mesa was no ordinary land. The Apache would discover that the power of their ancestors was more than legend. And Chayton, the young warrior who had once sought only to prove himself, now carried the weight of destiny, of life and death, and of a force older than the mountains themselves. The Guardian was awake. And the battle for Black Mesa was about to enter a new, dangerous chapter. The storm had begun long before the first sword was drawn. Chayton stood at the forefront, his gaze sweeping over the expanse of Black Mesa. The settlers had come in greater numbers now, armed not only with ambition but with desperation. They had underestimated the land, and they had underestimated the people who lived in its shadow. The Apache moved like the wind through the canyons, striking with precision, vanishing before retaliation could form. Trails they had defended for generations became traps, their knowledge of the land a weapon sharper than any blade. Every rock, every shadow, every twist of the path was familiar to them. Every strike they made carried the weight of ancestry, of stories older than the hills themselves. Chayton felt the Guardian stir beneath the earth. The ritual had bound its power to the protection of the tribe, and now it surged. A tremor ran through the ground, subtle at first, then stronger, a warning and a promise. The Mesa would not be taken. The settlers pushed forward, their determination fueled by greed and fear. But the land itself seemed to rise against them. Paths shifted, rocks tumbled where they had been stable, and shadows moved in ways that should have been impossible. Confusion spread among the invaders. Fear took root. Chayton led his warriors with unmatched skill. Every move he made was calculated, every decision a blend of instinct and training. Yet the battle was not won by cunning alone. The Guardian answered the call. Winds howled through the canyons, sand whipped into blinding clouds, and shadows seemed to take form, striking at those who dared desecrate the Mesa. Despite the chaos, Chayton remembered the lesson of restraint. His people fought to defend, not to destroy. Yet the settlers' violence forced a harsh truth. Survival demanded decisive action. Lives were lost on both sides, courage tested, and hatred deepened. The battle raged across the mesas and valleys. Fires lit the night, and cries of fear and determination echoed under the moon. Chayton pressed forward, confronting the leaders of the intruders with the ferocity of a warrior tempered by duty. Every step was guided by the ancestors, every strike sanctioned by the spirit of the land. And then, in the heart of the conflict, the Guardian revealed its true power. Rocks shifted, cliffs trembled, and the very earth seemed to fight alongside the Apache. The settlers who survived fled in terror, their numbers shattered, their arrogance humbled, their greed forever scarred by the memory of a land that would not bend. Chayton stood among his people, battered but unbroken. He looked upon Black Mesa and felt the pulse of its spirit, strong, unwavering, eternal. The battle was over, yet the land had left its mark. The cost had been high. The Mesa had demanded its due. Victory had been claimed, but at a price no one could yet measure. The settlers were driven back, but the Guardian's presence remained, a silent warning to all who might challenge the Mesa in the future. For Chayton, the battle had proven something beyond skill or courage. It had revealed the bond between his people and their sacred land, a bond that even time and ambition could never sever. The Guardian had awakened, the Mesa had defended its own, and the story of Black Mesa would be remembered, whispered, and feared for generations to come. The battle had ended, but the echoes of its fury lingered in every canyon, every ridge, every breath of wind across Black Mesa. Chayton walked among his people, surveying the cost of victory. Faces he knew, friends, warriors, brothers and sisters in arms, lost. The land had protected them, yes, but not without taking its price. The weight of survival pressed heavy on his young shoulders. And yet, even amidst sorrow, the intruders still lingered, desperate, fearful, but unwilling to completely abandon their ambition. They sought a final act of defiance, unaware that the Mesa's spirit had not finished its judgment. Chayton knew what must be done. He could not simply wait. To save his people, to ensure the Mesa remained unbroken, he would have to make a sacrifice unlike any he had imagined. Not for glory, not for pride, but for the future of all who called this land home. He confronted the leader of the settlers. Their eyes met across the jagged rocks, the silence between them thick with tension. Words were unnecessary, each knew the stakes. Chayton moved with the precision of his training, the instincts of the Guardian guiding him. Every action was measured, every breath drawn with purpose. The confrontation ended as abruptly as it began. Chayton stood victorious but not unscathed. In the struggle, he had given more than he had anticipated. A wound, deep and unforgiving, marked him, a reminder that even the Mesa's favor came with a cost. Around him the Apache mourned. Yet their grief was tempered by relief, by awe, by understanding that Chayton had fulfilled a role greater than any warrior alone. The Guardian had recognized the courage and dedication of its chosen keeper, and the Mesa itself seemed to settle, its spirit satisfied, for now. The settlers fled, broken and terrified, carrying with them tales that would grow into legend, warnings whispered across deserts and mountains far beyond Black Mesa. No one would forget the land that refused to bend, the people who stood unyielding, or the young warrior who had proven that courage, honor and sacrifice could defy even the ambitions of men. As dawn broke over the cliffs, Chayton looked upon the horizon. Pain gripped his body but clarity filled his mind. The Mesa had endured. His people had endured. And though the cost had been steep, their story, the story of Black Mesa, its guardian and its defenders, would echo across generations. The land remembered. The spirits watched. And the legacy of courage, sacrifice and unbroken will would live forever. Some battles are fought for survival. Some are fought for honor. And some are fought for the soul of the world itself. The land does not belong to those who claim it with greed or ambition. It belongs to those who respect it, nurture it and honor its memory. Black Mesa is more than stone and sand. It is a testament to generations who lived in harmony with its rhythms, who understood that true power lies not in possession, but in stewardship. To defend it is not merely to protect land, it is to protect history, culture, and the spirit of a people. The cost of defending heritage is never small. Families grieve, warriors sacrifice, and yet the bonds forged through that struggle endure far longer than the fleeting victories of those who arrive with arrogance in their hearts. Chayton's story reminds us that courage is measured not in the battles we win, but in the principles we uphold when every force around us pushes for surrender. It is the legacy of standing firm, even when the path is lined with loss and shadowed by danger. Some say the past is buried beneath the earth, forgotten with time. But here at Black Mesa the past is alive. It watches. It teaches. It whispers in the wind that sweeps across the cliffs, in the canyons that echo with memory, in the stones that remember every footstep of those who came before. Some battles never truly end. They are carved into the earth. And the land itself becomes the witness, the guardian, and the judge. The Mesa endures. The stories endure. And the lessons of respect, courage, and sacrifice remain, waiting for those who choose to listen. If you have followed the story of Chayton, the Apache, and the guardian of Black Mesa, you now understand that history is more than dates and names. It is lived, it is fought for, and it is remembered in the land itself. Subscribe now, and join us as we continue to uncover the untold legends of the Wild West, stories of courage, of spirit, and of places where the past never truly sleeps. Because some battles are never finished.